jobs. But as Home Secretary, Mrs May has consistently failed to meet her target of reducing migration. Indeed, net migration to the UK in the 12 months leading up to March 2015 was 330,000, an all-time high. Within that number, the net inward migration of EU citizens was 183,000. That's up 53,000 on the previous year. With regard to non-EU migration, Theresa May had some early success in the last Parliament. That number fell to 138,000 in the year ending September 2013, its lowest level since 1998. After that, however, it began to increase again. Non-EU net migration in the year to March 2015 was 196,000, the same level it was in 2010. Curbing EU immigration is a central plank of the government's attempts to renegotiate Britain's relationship with the EU. And in a boost to the Home Secretary this morning, one of the EU's top lawyers, the Advocate General, says the UK is entitled to keep its right to reside test, which limits access to child benefit and child tax credit for some EU migrants. Well, let's go to Andrew in Manchester. He's got the Home Secretary with him.
I do indeed. Joko, the Home Secretary, joins us now. Theresa May, welcome to the Daily Politics. You argue in your speech this morning there is no case for immigration of the scale we have experienced. Could you remind our viewers who's been Home Secretary for the past 5 years?
Yes, Andrew, I've been Home Secretary for the past 5 years, and as I also set out in my speech, after 2 years as Home Secretary, we had seen net migration cut significantly. It has gone back up since.
Well, it's higher than when you started.
And as I also set out, a couple of areas where we need to take further action.
But, you know, you said we made it our aim to get net migration down to the tens of thousands. That was 2011. We will reduce and control immigration. That was 2012 to this conference. Immigration is down. We're delivering. That was in 2013. Overall immigration is too high. 2014. May 2013. Uncontrolled mass immigration undermines social cohesion, a phrase you use again today. Would it not be a good idea to stop talking about this and do something about it, if that's what you think?
Well, first of all, Andrew, we have been doing something about it.
Except it's got worse.
No, we have, as I said in my speech, as I've just said, in the first 2 years we did see net migration coming down. We've now seen it going back up. It's doubled since that particular point. But what I've learned over the years as Home Secretary is that in the immigration arena, you can't just take one set of actions and then stand back and expect that that's going to completely resolve the problem. You constantly have to be looking at what we can do. That's why we will bring in a new immigration bill. We will be able to make some of the decisions that we weren't able to make under a coalition government.
People watching this will think you're all mouth and no trouser suit.
Well, apart from the fact that I'm wearing a dress today, Andrew.
You get my point. You keep on making... I mean, can I just point out, I've got a graph in front of me. We're not really able to show it here. It's based on the official figures. Even that part of migration which you can control, which is non-EU, that's risen.
Yes. And I set out...
Why have you allowed that to happen?
I set out one of the areas where we need to take greater enforcement action, and that's in the overstayers on student visas. We're very clear we want to encourage more students to come to the United Kingdom. We want to see people taking advantage of a UK education, but we also want to ensure that those who are staying on after their visa has finished, when they shouldn't be, are returned home. So these are areas where we need to ensure that we're taking further action beyond the action we've already taken.
If foreign students graduate from good universities in this country, well educated, highly qualified, why wouldn't you let them stay if they want to?
Well, if they get a graduate job, they can stay. But there are those who deliberately overstay their visas. And in fact, in some cases, as we've seen
Don't we need more graduates?
As we've seen in the 900 colleges that we've closed, we saw students being brought to the UK.
I said good universities.
Well, you said good universities, but of course as we look at the whole question of students, it's not just the good universities, it's actually a whole range of universities and private colleges. And what we've seen is significant abuse in the system.
Can we just underline, before I go on something else, that after 5 years of the kind of rhetoric we heard again today, net migration is now at its highest level ever?
And I've been clear that net migration has gone up in the last few years, and I'm explaining some of the reasons why it's gone up. But it isn't a case that we've taken no action whatsoever. We have had an impact in some areas of the immigration system. We need to continue looking at what more we need to do. So our commitment to continue to work on this is still there, and I think that's what matters to people.
When will we see results?
Well, we saw results over the start of the last government.
Which have been reversed.
Which have been reversed. We now need to put through the extra legislation, which we will be bringing into Parliament, and ensuring that we're taking that extra enforcement action.
You said, in what was really quite an anti-immigration speech, you said that the best the net economic and fiscal effect is close to zero, and for people in low-paid jobs, wages are forced down further, while some people are forced out of work altogether. That's not the conclusion of your own Home Office report in 2014. It says there's relatively little evidence that migration has caused statistically significant displacement of UK natives from the labour market. Have you not read your own department's report?
There are a number of reports that have been
This is your department.
A number of reports have been made on this issue. The Migration Advisory Committee, which is independent of government, I asked them specifically to look at this issue. They looked at migration between 1995 and 2010, and they were clear that there was a displacement of. It's not a one-to-one displacement of jobs.
I understand, but
it
is
was
your own Home Office report wrong?
If you look across the reports that have been written on this issue,
I'm asking about your department's report. It was only last year, Home Secretary, and it was on impacts of migration. Now, what it says and what you said today are two diametrically opposite things.
If you look at reports from the OECD, if you look at reports from the House of Lords Economic European Committee, if you look at the Migration Advisory Committee's work, which is independent of government, they say that there is an impact on wages at the lower end of the income scale, and there is an impact on jobs. Not a one-for-one displacement of jobs, but there is an impact on jobs.
You said also that high levels of migration make it impossible, as you were, to create a cohesive society. You had said that 2 years ago as well. Where is the evidence or the research for that?
I think what you can look at is what people feel in their communities when they see significantly. This is about high and uncontrolled levels of migration.
Sure. But where's the evidence?
When you see in communities people feeling that there is a lack of cohesion there.
But that's not evidence, that's a feeling. Where is the research that suggests that immigration has made us a less cohesive society?
Are you saying that we shouldn't listen to members of the public? Because that's what I'm doing.
But
I'm listening to members of the public.
Listening to members of the public is anecdotal.
Are talking about what they
I'm
see
asking for
in
the
their
research
society.
on this.
And I'm saying that what we see from the members of the public, what's clear, is that they have a concern about this.
They might be UKIP voters.
Yeah.
Do you still listen to them?
Going on doorsteps and listening to the member of the public is something that we as politicians do, but commentators don't often do, Andrew.
You used to famously call this the nasty party. Many people listening to your speech on immigration today and the cohesion will say that you are now the epitome of the nasty party.
Andrew, if you look at what I was talking about in my speech, I was talking first of all of controlling immigration because of the impact that high uncontrolled immigration has on people, on their public services and on low wages. I was secondly talking about a new deal so that we can actually give better support to people across the world who are most in need of our protection, but by rooting out abuse in the asylum system. I think most people, when they think about a refugee or somebody who's claimed asylum, will think about, for example, the families fleeing the war in Syria, the barbarism and brutality of that war in Syria. But we are taking people in from Syria.
But not those fleeing. We're taking the ones in refugee camps. But not those who have fled into Europe, are we?
Well, we are taking people who have left Syria, who have fled Syria because of the impact on their homes, who are in the refugee camps. And the reason we're taking those people is because they are the most vulnerable. If you take the people who have managed to get to Europe, they're the ones who've been able to pay somebody perhaps for that journey, or the fittest.
And risk their lives.
But what I was setting out today was very clearly that we need to root out abuse in our asylum system. Most people would be surprised if they knew that some of the people claiming asylum in the United Kingdom are students who get to the end of their visa, aren't able to stay on, so they claim asylum in order to try to stay here.
If you want to control immigration from the European Union without staying in the European Union, what do you need to change?
Well, we've set out very clearly, I mean, the Prime Minister has set out very clearly that part of what we're talking about is in dealing with the welfare issue. I showed some figures, spoke of some figures in my speech, or one figure, which is that if somebody comes here to the UK from another European Union country, if they're on a relatively low income, they can claim up to £10,000 extra in benefits. That's quite attractive in terms of encouraging people to come here. We want to change the welfare system so that, well, can I just say, because it's a very important principle on the welfare system, which is what we're talking about, is people being able to take out of the system but having to contribute to the system before they take out of it.
You also told the Sunday Times, you wrote in the Sunday Times in August that you really thought that free movement should mean freedom to move to a job. Do you still think that?
If you look at the very start of the free movement principle within the European Union, it was, of course, about freedom to move to a job. Since then, we've seen a number of ways in which it's been extended and in some cases is being abused. And there is a real need for us across Europe to deal with the abuse of the free movement system that we see.
Could you give me any indication of any European ally that would agree to restricting freedom to only those who've got a job? Anybody?
People are very clear that we need to ensure that free movement across Europe is not about movement for benefits.
Does Mrs. Merkel agree with that?
It's not about movement for benefits, it's about movement...
Does Mrs. Merkel agree with that?
It's not about movement for benefits, it's about
President
movement for work.
Does President Hollande agree with that?
And I can assure you that I have seen over recent years, talking to my opposite numbers in other member states, a growing concern about the abuse of free movement that people see.
Does Prime Minister Renzi of Italy agree with that?
People are seeing a growing abuse of free movement that we need to work with.
None of them agree with that, do they, Home Secretary? They don't agree with you. You may be right, you may be wrong, but none of them agree with you.
We are negotiating, as you know, our relationship with the European Union. One of the issues we're looking at within that is this question of access to welfare, which at the moment provides an attraction for people to come to the European Union, and that's why it's absolutely right that we want to operate on the principle that if you are going to take out of the system, you should contribute to the system first.
If you don't get this in the renegotiation, would you consider joining the outs?
I'm confident that we're going to be able to negotiate a good package with the European Union.
Okay, but if you don't get this, would you consider out?
I'm confident that we're going to be able to negotiate a good package, and this area is one of those aspects that we're discussing with the European Union.
You will have spoken to many delegates to this conference who will have told you that they have to run the gauntlet to get in here of people